All right, so I'm back on the 67 coupe here. Going to be cutting out all the old rusty metal, everything that's getting replaced, which is the entire floor, rails, back to the taillight panel, and from firewall forward, this whole front clip is just going to get cut off, which is somewhat easy to do. I use a plasma cutter, which I have sitting there. I have it all plugged in, ready to fire up, which it's just cutting right through it like a torch, basically, but a torch on steroids. Just going to chop it right off into big sections, carry it out the door, and get it out of the way. And then I'll worry about cleaning up all the spots where I'm going to be welding the new metal onto, like where the aprons here meet the firewall, and then where the entire floor pan is going to meet, which is all the outside pieces, the inner rockers, trunk drop-off area where it meets the quarters, wheel houses, which some of that stuff is going to need patched and fixed up where it meets the taillight panel. It's basically the whole way around the car. I got to prep all that metal and make sure that that metal is good enough to weld the new stuff onto. So some patches are going to need to be made, but my main focus is getting all this old metal out, getting it out of the way to make room for the new stuff, so I can at least get the floor pan in here and get the floor in, which is the main thing, because that's a huge piece and I want to get it out of the spot where I have it sitting currently. So going to fire up the plasma cutter and just get cutting, get it out of the way, and then we'll go from there. All right, so I'm at my stopping point here. I figured I'd show you where I'm at and what I'm working with going forward, but just cut all the major pieces out to get them out of the way so that I can prep all the metal of where I'm attaching new metal. So just a quick go over, these inner rockers are got to come out, so I got to drill out these spot welds that you can see here, top and bottom, peel them off so it will just leave the outer rocker. I'll clean up the inside of that outer rocker and paint it so that that's coated pretty good. I got some of the pieces inside here out of my way because the actual firewall is completely separated the whole way up, so I got to patch that together, and the firewall insulation was all in there, so that stuff would catch on fire, so I got it out of the way so I don't have to work around that stuff. You can see the spot welds that are holding the front apron on there, so I'll grind them from the outside, but whenever I'm welding there, the heat on that would have caught that insulation on fire. So I got that stuff out of the way on both sides. It's actually completely separated on this side also the whole way up to the cowl. There was a huge mouse nest up inside the fresh air vent that gets mounted right there, completely blocked. Same thing on this side, the inner rocker has got to come out the whole way back, and then going along the wheelhouse, as you can see the lip of the trunk floor where it attaches there, got to drill out those spot welds the whole way back, and then also drill out these drop-offs from the quarters and the trunk brace here from the taillight panel. And I actually left the trunk brackets that are mounted to the taillight panel above off, where I left them on, because the new floor then can just come up and butt onto that, and I don't have to weld these from the outside where the green paint is. I don't want to take away from the outside of the car, so I'm trying to keep it as inconspicuous as possible to make it as clean as possible here. These are going to be a little bit of a tricky area because I don't want to have to weld on the outside where it's painted. The only spot where I'm going to have to do that is on the rockers along the outside, because I'm going to drill through. I have to weld along the bottom there, which could be painted or undercoated or something like that, but that's on the very bottom of the car. You won't see that. The top ones are actually in this groove here, which will be covered by a door sill plate, so you'll never see that that was changed there. So bunch of boring stuff here is all just cutting that stuff out and prepping the metal, painting these inside rails, and just prepping this shell for the new floor pan, new front rails. So that's what I'm going to be doing. I'll probably zip that stuff off and come back show you before it's time to set the new floor, and that's what will be first. After all that's prepped, I'll set this on some different stands so they're out wider, that I can just slide the floor underneath, drop the body down on, because I am a one-man operation, so I've had to figure out over the years how to do all this stuff by myself, and I can't just lift up this body so easily, so I just drop it instead. So I'll capture all that here, but I'm going to get ahead, start cutting out and prepping the main shell here for the new metal. So just like 90% of the cars that I'm cutting the inner rockers out, I find huge nests hidden behind. That's a lot of times why I don't like to use the plasma cutter to cut out these spot welds anymore, because it just lights that stuff on fire and it smells pretty bad, and it'll smoke and smoke and smoke because that stuff really burns. But just thought that was interesting. You can see it takes up almost half of the rocker on that side. There's nothing on this side actually. So I'm going to clean up all that stuff, clean the inside of this pocket, paint it, and seal it up so that it's good to go for the new floor. And I got to go around and trim out some of the wheelhouses there, clean up some of the areas to get it ready so that the metal's prepped to weld. But I just thought it was interesting, wanted to share the goodness that I found inside of this rocker. Floor sitting underneath. I'm ready to drop the body on. I'm gonna let the rockers, the inside of the rockers, dry here overnight. I got them sprayed with 2 coats. And I'm gonna prep the floor, the surface where I'm welding around the whole panel there, just to make sure everything is good for the weld. But you can see I just put the jack stands farther out, spread them. I put them on 4x4s. This is the way that I've developed to make it easy for myself, because I have a forklift like you just seen. Just scoot it up underneath, and then I'll take out either the back or the front piece of wood first, and then drop it down little by little until it sits over top of it. Pinch it together, and then I lift it back up as one. A lot of the metal that's actually around yet is pretty decent. You can see there's some cuts I had to make there, like at the back of the wheelhouses. There's some at the front too that I'm going to make some patches for. But the rest of it's pretty nice. These quarters actually were replaced before. Both full quarters were done at some point in its life. That's why they're so nice. This side is actually perfect. There's no real rust at all other than some surface rust in that mounting area. This side you can see there's some rust going on there, but where I'm welding it's pretty good. So we'll patch some of the little things that we got to along the taillight panel. Is actually really nice the whole way. There's no rust holes on that. So it's really, it was just strange how rusted out the bottom side and the frame rails of this car were for how nice the rest of it is. Like I said, it had quarters replaced. The outer wheelhouses were replaced at some point in its life, long time ago. It was repainted the same color that it was originally. It looks like from the inside metal that was still here. All right, so just to give a little context on where I'm at with this and how I got to the point of measuring. Measuring is the key. If I haven't said before, I set my rockers to a certain height, which is what you should do. And then measure before you take anything apart. As long as your car's straight, wasn't really wrecked, measure the height off the ground to the back rail, measure the height off of the ground to the front of the rail, and that gives you your main span of where things should be when you're going back together. But you can measure a ton of things in between, which is what I do. You need cross measurements and distances, and just measure as much as you possibly can. A good cross one that I do is from the end of these inner rocker lips out to the edge of the frame rails on both sides. Points I go off of, like on these 65 up to 68. The cow corner is a nice clean edge that you can measure off of that face out to the end of the front of the apron here, or to different points like mounting hole locations. Cross measurements on the top here, I go off of the corner of that cowl out to a certain spot in the centering of these holes on both sides. That makes sure that your front and your front left and right rail aren't kicking sideways. It makes it so it's lined up right. Using an export brace is also something that helps line it up. These are the original ones, which they ended up lining up perfect after I had everything measured out. So everything's good there. I have everything set to where it needs to be. You can see off of my platform, I use the platform also to pull rails where I need them to be, or to hold them in place. I have one back in the middle also that's pulling that back end a little bit, just to tweak it in the directions that I need to have it favor. Because these panels, when they're putting them together overseas, they're just slapping them together for the most part. If things are a little bit off, they don't care. So you got to make things line up with this new sheet metal, which is what I'm doing. But everything for the most part, I've never had really a panel that didn't work or didn't fit. Everything is pretty darn close to where it should be with this reproduction metal. It just needs tweaked here and there. As you can see, maybe in that video, I had to trim out. I always have to trim the bottom edges that fit underneath the cowl lip on the back aprons on both sides. That's just always have to do that, it seems like. But yeah, just measurements, cross, back and forth. Know your measurements in between the aprons from here to there, because they can vary. It was nice using a car like this where I left these rear extension pieces on, so I know where this rail needed to sit. So you don't have to know the back end measurement. It's just going to go right in place with this car. But everything else you need to measure and measure and keep measuring. So everything's lined up with this. I'm going to go ahead and start welding all these rails and pieces in. I'll leave my straps still attached in the end until I get the torque boxes welded in, which will be what I do here next. Also with the stabilizer bar brackets that I have sitting there on the floor, they get welded in, one on each side here going across. That'll brace up the front end also. So I'll leave all that stuff attached, weld those two in, weld both torque boxes in before I take all that stuff out, and then I'll remove my front stands and leave it just on the four main ones again. And then after that, I just have to go inside and weld in the toe boards here. You can see that's the main piece missing here. The front will be, it's nice having this open here to do the torque boxes, so I can fully weld them easily all around. And then I'll go ahead and cut the toe boards to fit and patch those on both sides, and then finish welding my main hump there on the floor pan. But other than that, all my back end is all done. I've made patches, little patches here and there. I've welded all of the rockers up, ground my welds down. Made some, you can see a little patch there at the back of that wheelhouse. Everything's welded together along the taillight panel. That's all done and fit up. Everything went together pretty good, pretty smooth, so can't complain with the car. Everything's going pretty good. I'll have the sheet metal pretty much done here after, hopefully today or tomorrow, which will be all in this video here of just doing those couple brackets, grinding down the welds, and then that'll be time to put the doors, fenders back on, hood, and mount everything up to get it done and get it back to him so he can start cranking away. And I'm sure he wants to make some more videos putting this thing back together and getting it back on the road. So yeah, I'm gonna start welding on this front end. All right, so we're back here. We got the car all finished up. Chris is here to pick it up. We're just kind of going over what all was done with it, looking at all the bits and pieces just to see all the fresh metal. Rust is gone.
Looks the same, so that's exactly what I was after.
Yeah, everything looks all the same. Rusted out green, but that's the
what would you say like the crux of this job was doing? I mean, because I look at what you did was replace all the sheet metal, and that just looks like a giant pain in the, you know.
It's fairly simple, and I say that, but I've done so many of these floor pan jobs, these big one-piece floor pans. But doing it myself, when you see it in the video, you can see it's a little bit of a trick to get it to sit back down onto that new floor pan. But it's just one piece that ties in everything. So as long as, and the metal was all good all around for the most part. So it made it easy to go in. But other than that, it was just the front rails and they're one piece. So it's cool, pretty simple, straightforward, and fixes all the rust issues that this car had. So it just makes sense.
I'm excited to get this thing coated, well, you know, a little rust proofing,
that
with the motor strings back.
Fresh seats now.
Yeah, I just sat down on this. I couldn't believe, like,
So
you got these padded up nice.
All the nests are gone.
Yes. This is gonna be, we're gonna be cruising in style on this. Got air wrench motors behind the camera there too. Thanks for having the shots, right, cameraman? What do you think, eBay?
Looks good. Looks real solid.
Pop the trunk here and show you some of this way you can see some of the fresh metal, I guess. And then we'll look under the hood quick. But
oh yeah.
you see this is just your tail end of the floor pan and everything forward to the frame rails.
Brand new rail under there. Can't wait to get this up in there. It's got some used leaf springs made in Canada.
Yeah.
Like new, used. Yeah, she's fresh as can be. I cannot wait to get it home. Well, Ben, thank you so much for all your hard work on this.
Yeah, I'm glad I could do it.
Yeah, maybe I'll, if you're looking for more work in the future, find some other rusty Mustangs. You know, maybe get a fastback over here and, yeah.
I don't know if you want to just take a quick glance under here to see. But everything from the firewall forward is all new stuff, so structurally you're good.
Yep, looks stout. Gonna ride a whole lot better than I did before. Going down the road, it was a little, you know, a little wavy. So,
yeah.
Beautiful.
So,
and in case you guys are wondering, this is the cameraman over here. Because we weren't even gonna get clips all this.
Is like
and then
come on.
Eric was like, "Oh, you gotta record it." So, but the man, you guys need Mustang stuff done, man.
so
Ben,
if you want to see the car get finished up back on the road, check out his channel. No Nonsense, No How, and see it go back together. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.